to Window on the World. Everyone knows that we have the opportunity here at Missouri Southern for faculty and staff to go and visit some abroad studies. So we're here with Rachel and Bailey, and they took a trip to Dublin. Can we tell us more about that? How are you guys doing?
Doing good.
Enjoying summertime?
Yeah.
Very much.
Very much.
All right, guys. So why did you want to take this trip?
Howie and Rachel set up the trip for a class called Literary Dublin, which was through the spring semester. We read literature from Irish authors and playwrights, and then we took the trip from May 19th to June 2nd in both Killarney and Dublin, Ireland, to visit the places we read about and just see, get an actual idea of what we were reading about.
Oh, awesome.
So we read about the Easter Rising that took place in Dublin, where Ireland became a republic, or declared they wanted to become a republic. We went there and we got to see where that took place and learn about the battle that took place there, and it was really nice to get to kind of put an actual place to what we were envisioning while we were reading. So
a lot of history behind the studies, and then going and seeing it all is like just an experience itself, right?
Sure.
When did you guys take this trip?
It was May 19th to June 2nd, so.
Okay.
Yeah.
So right in the middle of spring.
Yeah.
Cool.
Every honors student on Missouri Southern's campus is required to study abroad. So we put together this class. It had 18 students, 2 instructors. So the director of the honors program, Michael Howarth, and then myself, I'm the assistant director of the program. And we just decided it would be a great experience for the students to read some fantastic Irish literature and then actually go and experience it in kind of the busy season. There were a lot of people there, a lot of tourists. So it was a wonderful trip. It was a wonderful trip.
I bet. So let's talk about more about the travel experience itself. Some people never get to travel abroad. How was the plane? How many connections did you guys have? How was your TSA experience and going overseas? How was that?
Sure. You want to take that, Bailey?
Yeah. So for me, it was my first time ever going overseas, so that was crazy. We had 3 flights to take to Dublin, and then 2 flights coming back with a 7-hour layover, or 5-hour layover in Chicago. So it was 5 hours, and we literally just had to take a 1-hour flight back to Tulsa to get home. So we were all kind of
punch drunk.
Yeah, we were kind of annoyed at the amount of flights, but once we got to where we were going, we were really happy. Getting to study abroad was amazing, and getting to go to Ireland was something I always wanted to do, but never expected I was going to get to do, especially with, a class where it's like, okay, I, read about all these places, and now I'm getting to see them with my own eyes, which doesn't always happen, and I'm really happy that we did the class the way we did, because I was able to learn and then go see everything rather than just going on the trip and looking at a place and having someone tell me, oh, this is what that is. And me going, okay, I don't have a connection to that, so it doesn't really make sense to me, or it doesn't have a meaning to me. Because I got to read the literature, I was able to have a more personal connection to the places we went. And yeah, it was a lot of fun, and I would do it again in a heartbeat.
Oh yeah, I bet. So tell me more, you guys went in May, so how was the weather when you guys went? Was it typical Ireland, where it was foggy and cold, or was it spring-like?
We actually had beautiful weather. We arrived to rain, which was kind of nice to get the typical, we came in landing in a beautiful green field, but we arrived to rain, which was okay, and our first day was rainy, but then, I mean, it was kind of perfect. The sun was out, there was a nice breeze. We were really spoiled rotten.
We had 2 kind of cold days. One while we were traveling Dingle Peninsula, which was freezing because we're on the coast. So with the water coming in and going to the beaches, it was freezing. And then the other one was in Dublin, and we were going to visit the National Art Gallery. And it was pouring rain. We got halfway from our hotel to the gallery, and it just started pouring rain. And we're like, okay, so that's how today's going to be.
Did you guys walk everywhere?
In Dublin and Killarney,
Yeah, we did.
It's a lot of walking.
Yeah, well, when we went on our tours, we had some really lovely coaches, buses. that I mean, we got kind of spoiled, but so once we got to the actual city of Dublin, where you're really walking everywhere, and that was really the only thing that I wish we could have adjusted. Our hotel was about a 30-minute walk from the city center.
Oh, goodness.
So we had a 30-minute walk just to get to the city to do what we were going to do, and usually there was a small walk from there. And it was difficult to find a hotel to accommodate 20 people with, you know, we had some triples, we had some doubles, we had 2 singles, so we were just happy to find somewhere to stay, and the walk was okay. We got used to it, we acclimated, but yeah, that was the only.
It gives you a true experience of living there, walking everywhere.
Exactly.
Yeah,
by the end of the trip, we had gotten so used to walking that by the end of it, we're like, we're gonna have to go back to driving, and that's gonna be so weird. So.
Yeah, where were some of your favorite places to visit? Restaurants, attractions, where did you visit? Where was your most favorite experience that you had?
I loved Killarney. It was a small little tourist town, but it was the most beautiful town, and every night at about 7 o'clock, well, around 7 to 9, they would start playing music, and so you would, you know, walk down the streets, and from every pub there'd be a different song playing, and it was all live music, and you could go in just about anywhere and hear just the traditional Irish music. And even right outside of our hotel, they had like a little courtyard, and there was a guy there every night who was playing music. And the first night we got there, we were all jet lagged and so done with everything. We were like, please tell us this isn't going to be every single night. And by the end of it, like when we were leaving Killarney, I was like, I hope that there's someone like that. I hope Dublin is like this. And it wasn't. There wasn't as much like hearing the music on the streets, but it was beautiful. I would go to Killarney a million times.
Yeah, Killarney was great.
Yeah.
And I think it was a good kind of first step, because a lot of people hadn't really even been out of the 4-state area. One student that we took with us had never been on a plane before.
Oh, wow.
So it was a big step to go from Joplin to a whole other country. So starting in Killarney, it was, you know, it's still a foreign city, so you're still acclimating, but it was smaller and a little friendlier and more accommodating. So I think that was a great first step before we got to the big city of Dublin. But my favorite days, we went on a beautiful tour of the Ring of Kerry, which is basically one of the peninsulas of Ireland, and just drove around, and it was a gorgeous day. The sun was shining, the greens were so green you can't even imagine. So that was just a really gorgeous day. We went to a beach, we stopped and had some great food, so just kind of a wonderful experience. And then my favorite kind of site that we saw was, it sounds odd, but Kilmainham Jail, where they actually held the men who started the rise for the Republic of Ireland. And we just had a fabulous tour guide who walked us through what those men would have experienced after basically revolting against the British crown and saying this is what we want as Irishmen, what they would have experienced. We heard some heartbreaking stories and got to read the original letters from these men to their parents, to their wives, to their children, because they knew they were to be executed. So it was just one of those things, kind of so similar to our own history as a country, what these men personally sacrificed for what they believed in. So I think that really kind of hit home because it's so similar to our own history in America. It was just a really inspiring place to see, I think.
Oh yeah, of course. So while you guys are traveling, walking, experiencing all the history, I'm sure you were craving some food. What kind of dishes did you like? What was your favorite? What was your most interesting? What did you not like? You gotta have picky eaters on the trip, of course.
You wanna start?
I had, the first night we got to Killarney, there was a pub called Mulligan's, I think, right down from our hotel. And they had a really good potato leek soup, and it was so good. And then Ireland makes this thing called brown bread, and you can get it everywhere, but it is some of the best like bread I've ever had. And it was kind of a thing that every place we went, everyone wanted brown bread, or everyone in my little group, we all ordered brown bread because it was just so good, and we got so used to having it with every meal because it was so good.
Yeah, I mean, the food isn't super exotic. We're in Ireland, so the traditional things that you think of, shepherd's pie, fish and chips, but we also had really delicious hamburgers. They have really delicious Irish beef over there, so that was really good. Their potatoes were fabulous. My favorite meal was at a little restaurant, and I had a delicious shepherd's pie and a nice glass of Guinness. You know, it's like the traditional Irish fare, so nothing too exotic, but we never really ran into anything that nobody liked or didn't want to try. Some, thick stews and soups. So I would say it's a great place for people to travel that maybe are picky because it's not overly exotic. You always know what you're going to get. So yeah, the food situation was pretty easy. Breakfasts were
breakfasts were amazing.
And delicious with lots of orange juice and lots of toast. So yeah, it was, I mean, the food's pretty easy to acclimate to. It's not too different from what we're used to here.
Okay. So when you guys are over, you said some people have never left the four-state area, and then going overseas and trying to get used to it. So is there anything that was hard for you to adjust from Joplin to over there? Was there anything that stuck out to you from the culture? Were they friendly to you?
People would stop us on the street and just talk to us, which doesn't happen much here. And usually if it happens here, we're kind of like, okay, who is this crazy person? But over there, everyone would stop and they were so kind, or they wanted to know why you were there and they wanted to know where you were going. And it was so nice to just stop and talk to people and bring up, oh, we're going to the Ring of Kerry today, and have someone say, oh, I lived there for this long, and I studied there. And they would stop and tell us stories. And there were people who would stop me on the street and ask me what my shirt mean, because I was wearing a lot of band shirts and stuff, and they would ask me the meaning of my shirt, or they would just stop just to talk. And it was so nice being in a place where everyone was friendly and everyone wanted to know who you were. It's like you were new, so they wanted to know who you were. And even though everyone in Ireland didn't know each other, but they all acted like they knew each other. And it was a very different experience, where from here we have a little bit of infighting. Over there, it was nice to go over and see everyone who, even if they didn't know each other, they were treating each other like they were family, or like they've known each other for years. So it was a nice change.
Oh yeah, of course.
I think I think it's just leaving behind the car.
Yeah.
But that's really any time you travel, I guess, you're leaving behind your car and you're walking to your destinations. But again, it's not, we didn't travel to a super exotic place. They drive on the other side of they say they drive on the correct side of the road. Oh. But they drive on the other side of the road than we do, and their steering wheels are on the other, on the other side. And of course you buy the electricity adapters and all that jazz, so you can charge your phone, or those sorts of things, but not too much. Wasn't too off of what we're used to here. But yeah, the people are friendly, and and Dublin was bustling and busy and full of street performers, and the same thing you see when you go to a big city in America. Kind of there's a larger homeless population. There's different kind of businesses that you can walk into. So, Dublin really does have that big city feel, and I think that's always kind of an adjustment from Joplin, because even though we have so many amenities and so many things to do when you go to the big city, and we saw two different plays. We went to the theater 2 nights and walked to them. Walking distance to public performing art is that's a little more rare in this part. So that was kind of a neat thing too. So I think it's just having those kind of amenities available in walking distance.
Wow. Yeah. So let's talk more about the history that you guys studied. How long did you prepare to take this trip, and what all did you do? Did you just, everybody had assigned reading? Did you pick your own? Tell me more about that.
Okay. We studied the entire spring semester, and we were all given assigned reading, and then we watched a lot of movies as well, or documentaries. And I would say that the reading, it was a lot of repetition, but in a good way. That it's it put it in a way where we were reading one book about you know, the Easter Rising, and then it would be brought up in another book, but we were able to understand it now because we read that first book. So it was a lot of just reading and watching Irish movies and documentaries, and then we took the trip. So
yeah, so in preparing the classwork, you know, a semester-long class, Dr. Howarth and I thought about what are the things that we want to address from the Irish culture, from Irish history. The potato famine or the Great Hunger. It's a huge part of their history where they lost 2 million people from their population. 1 million immigrated, so you know, a lot of them came to the United States, and another million passed away from starvation. So we knew that that was something that we wanted to talk about. The Easter Rising, which Bailey already mentioned, some of their beautiful historical sites, Newgrange. So we knew we wanted to put that in context that they could read and understand. We read some plays that were written on the Aran Islands. This is a place that we weren't going to visit, but that they would be able to understand how that could impact the other parts of Ireland. So it was really just picking things that we knew the students would relate to as young adults, and being able to put that history in context with poetry and plays and novels, literature, those sorts of things. And we wanted to introduce them to some of the great Irish writers, James Joyce, Synge, those people who are so important to the Irish culture. We wanted them to have some exposure to them as well.
Of course, of course. So I know you guys sent us some pictures, and then you took some day trips into Ireland and surrounding areas. So if we could take a look at those. I understand that you guys, where is this?
So this is just a small kind of a public house, a pub, but it's in the area where an explorer named Tom Crean was born and lived. And Tom Crean was instrumental in the exploration of Antarctica. A lot of people aren't familiar with him, but there are some famous pictures that people would know if they just did a quick Google search of Tom Crean, of him holding some puppies. But really instrumental, and just kind of got on a ship. A man was going down to do some exploring, and he was looking for another able-bodied man. And this Tom Crean just volunteered and got on a ship to Antarctica and went back 3 or 4 times. So it was just I didn't know that about this man from Ireland, and it's someone that they're very proud of.
Yeah. And it all started out because Tom Crean had a fight with his father. The only reason he left was because he had fought with his father, and then he was like, all right, I'm gonna go join the British Army, and it just took off. And so, you know, when he came back, he didn't tell anyone where he'd gone, because if he had told anyone that he was with the British Army, then, you know, his neighbors would have been very angry because Ireland was fighting with Britain at the time. So it was, you know, kind of risky for him to just jump off and take this rebellious kind of plunge. But he did it, and he ended up serving in like Australia as well. And just kind of went all over.
So these are some of the oldest structures in Ireland. They call these the beehives, and they're just these strange little buildings but they're watertight. You can go in there. We escaped in there from some really crazy wind that day, and this was on our tour of the Dingle Peninsula, so another peninsula there on Ireland, so not far from the sea. And it was just kind of a fun little day where we were exploring, you know, and to think of building these structures without a lot of, can you remember how old they were?
I can't
either. I'm sorry, I'm being a bad guest. But to build these, you know, and these stone walls that you see without just tools. So that was just a really fun day. There was a really nice Irishman there running the place. He had puppies running around.
Lambs.
Some of the girls got to hold some lambs. So yeah, that was just that's how we started our trip. That was our first full day there. And it was just a great way to start.
And it was right across from the water.
Yes.
It was like right across the street was just open sea.
Yeah.
Wow.
So it was nice to have just like sprawling mountains on one side and then just the sea on the other.
Yeah.
And it was very beautiful.
Yeah, which you can see in the picture. And this is actually the same area. They just filmed the new Star Wars movie. So he was pointing that out. I don't know a lot about Star Wars, but a lot of people were very impressed by that. But it was neat to know, to see where some of these movies that we think about were filmed in Ireland. Braveheart.
Wow.
P.S. I Love You.
P.S. I Love You, of course. But yeah, it was kind of fun to see that they were using this beautiful landscape, because you can see how breathtaking it is, to create movies. So yeah, the picture you're seeing now was right across from those beehives.
This was also Dingle Peninsula. This was the beach. I don't remember what the name of the beach was, but we took some time and it was raining and freezing, but we all wanted to go see the beach, so we all ran down, and a lot of people got into the water, which I thought was crazy because it was freezing, and a lot of us just walked around looking for shells and little keepsakes that we could bring back. And after that, we all ran. Some people ran up to get hot chocolate from the little vendor that was up there, and some of us just ran straight to the bus because we were all freezing.
Yeah, it was very cold, and that wind was hurting. That beach also, we read Playboy of the Western World, the play, and that beach is where they filmed the movie Playboy of the Western World.
Oh,
so
wow,
that was
it's
really
cool
neat.
Seeing it actually work out,
yeah. This is just part of the landscape at Muckross Estates, which was a giant estate and sprawling gardens, and you can just see that's all the students there, so all 18 students crammed under that giant tree. And you can just see the sun shining, the bright blue skies, and the beautiful land. I mean, we just had a beautiful day for that, and a wonderful time on the tour of the estates. And
the estate was my favorite. I loved Muckross.
yeah, it was beautiful. Which queen came to visit?
Victoria,
Victoria came to visit, so we got to see how they set up the room for her and where she stayed. So yeah, it was a great day there. That's also Muckross Estates, looking out into a lake that they had. Just the students took part of that day and just walked all around that area. Some of them tried to get to a waterfall.
We got to the waterfall, but it was like a 25-minute walk. And they told us we had 40 minutes left, and we were told that it was only a 20-minute walk. So we did the 20-minute walk there, got to take a couple pictures, and then had to walk 20 minutes back. And it ended up being about a 25 to 30-minute walk. So by the end of it, there was a good chunk of us that were just running to the bus because we were like, we're going to be late.
Yeah, they would have been in trouble if they'd been late. Yeah. This is Ross Castle, just another beautiful place. Same day, we visited that the same day, so you can see those beautiful blue skies and the green grass. And we just kind of wandered around there. There were some neat old cannons and learned some interesting things about that architecture. The stairs are all uneven. Some are short, some are tall, some are wider than others, so that if anyone were to invade the house, they'd have a more difficult time negotiating those stairs, where if you had lived there, you'd be used to their quirks. So that was just kind of an interesting thing that we learned about the castles of the time. This is St. Mary's Cathedral. This was in Killarney. Just absolutely beautiful. Some of the most beautiful stained glass I have ever seen, and just open to the public to come walk through, light candles if you want to do that. A really beautiful memorial tree is planted there, where children who were lost in the Great Hunger are buried under that tree. So just kind of a nice memorial to them, because the tree is big and beautiful, and they put big light bulbs in it to kind of light it up, just as in remembrance of those children that were lost in that time. This was our tour of the Ring of Kerry. Again, that's another peninsula in Ireland. And you can just see how picturesque and beautiful it was. And again, the weather, the sun was just shining, there was a light breeze. So just a great day.
This was our first stop. Our tour driver told us that he wanted to give us a chance to take some pictures. And so he pulled over, and we all got out and ran to this and took a bunch of pictures. And it was a lot of fun.
Yeah, that's the whole group there, all 18 of us, freshmen. We had some seniors, some that had already graduated. So it was a really nice mix, all different majors. And you know, we just had a wonderful, all the students got along, they meshed well, there were really no fussing, no one who was unwilling to try anything, so I could not have asked to travel with a more delightful group of students. This is Daniel O'Connell's house where he grew up, and he was, O'Connell was the leader of the group that took over the General Post Office, which you'll see a bit later. And this is just where he grew up, so you can kind of see his humble background, but that led him to want to revolt against the British Crown and to form Ireland into its own republic.
So with all of this, and obviously all Missouri Southern students have the opportunity to travel abroad, especially honors students when it's a must, right? So is there anything that you'd give advice to, where to go, what to do, try everything? What advice would you give other students or faculty to do when they're traveling abroad? Like, little traveling tips, or wear better shoes.
Definitely read up on the place you're going. And a lot of people will end up reading on it because of a class or whatever. But if the class doesn't require it, read up on some things, because it made the experience so much more memorable and so much, just so much better, because we knew what we were going into. We could look at the structures and be like, oh, I remember reading about this, or I remember reading about how it was made, or the important events that took place here. I also recommend to try everything. Don't be afraid to try something just because you don't like it here. I had a couple friends who don't like fish, but were willing to try it while they were over there and ended up really liking it while they were in Ireland, but didn't really like it here. So try things, go out of your comfort zone, and don't be afraid to walk everywhere if it's required, because some of my fondest memories are just walking around with my friends and getting to experience the city with them. So
yeah, that's perfect advice. I agree. Read some nonfiction and some fiction from the area. Go with an open mind and just try to have a positive attitude. I mean, like you're gonna hit some bumps, but that's okay. We'll figure it out. That was just kind of our motto. We'll just figure it out.
Well, thank you guys for joining us and sharing your experience with us on Window of the World. I'm sure you'll be watching other students and seeing what their adventures were over the summer. And so thank you guys so much for watching on Window of the World, and catch us on our next episode.